The knife-sharp wind of Riven 7 screamed its way through Kalen's thermal suit as he dug. The plasma ice was harder than granite, his powered auger whining in protest. He wasn't mining for the rare isotope deposits that made this frozen rock valuable. He was digging a grave. His daughter Lily was a small, still bundle in her cryo crib back at the HAB module. The medical scanner's final flat tone still echoed in his skull. Systemic cryofailure. Incompatible with Riven 7 biome. Genetic rejection, 100%. Time of death 2147 standard. 6 years old. Gone because he'd been desperate, enough to take a deep space mining contract to pay off their debts. He'd brought her to a world that killed her simply for breathing its air. Tears froze instantly on his cheeks, leaving trails of brittle crystal. The auger bit into something that wasn't ice, something that thrummed. A low resonant vibration traveled up the tool and into his bones. A pale bioluminescent blue light seeped up through the crack he'd made. It pulsed like a slow, sad heartbeat. He fell to his knees, clawing at the shards with gloved hands. The ice gave way, revealing not rock but a smooth, organic-looking surface like polished chitin. The light came from within. As he watched, a segment of the surface irised open with a soft hydraulic sigh. A small trembling figure was revealed, curled in a hollow of warm glowing fibers. It looked up at him with eyes the size of saucers, pools of liquid mercury reflecting the howling white wasteland behind him. It was humanoid, but distinctly other. Skin the color of twilight moss, delicate cranial tendrils instead of hair, clad in tattered remnants of a silvery membrane. It was a child. An alien child. Its thin arms were wrapped protectively around an even smaller bundle, a baby. Its skin dull gray, its own tiny tendrils lifeless. The older child's mouth moved and a voice, translated by Kalen's suit computer in a soft, synthesized tone, whispered through his helmet speakers. "Sir, my baby sister is freezing, please." Kalen's breath hitched. The plea sliced through his grief with the precision of a scalpel. He looked from the alien child's desperate, mercury eyes to the dead infant in its arms, then back towards his HAB module, where his own child lay cold and still. The wind screamed. The blue light pulsed. His world, already shattered, fractured into entirely new, terrifying dimensions. What in God's name was buried in this ice? And in a universe that had just taken everything from him? Could he find one reason to save someone else? Oh, before we continue, subscribe now so you don't miss more incredible stories like this one. Oh, and tell us in the comments where you are watching this video from. We always read every message. The galaxy called it the Great Relocation. Humanity, having finally cracked sustainable faster-than-light travel, exploded into the Orion Arm not as conquerors but as desperate tenants. Earth was a dying ICU patient. The Exodus fleets were its life support, ferrying billions to any world the Galactic Commons deemed habitable enough. Riven 7 was a Class C marginal world, a ball of ice and howling gales orbiting a sullen red dwarf. Its only virtue was cryodite, a crystal that stabilized fusion cores. It was a place for the indebted, the desperate, and the broken to work off their passage. People like Kalen Reed, his HAB module, the Whisper, was a dented cylinder of alloy and regret. It hummed with the strained song of life support, fighting the planet's 80-degree chill. Inside it was a shrine to failure. A picture of his wife. Ilara smiled from a screen, frozen in time 2 years ago, before the reactor meltdown on Nova Kiev took her and their future. Next to it, a handmade drawing from Lily of a three-legged cat. Their debts for her advanced gene therapies that ultimately couldn't save her. From this alien atmosphere were a ghost that followed him even here. He moved through the cramped space like a phantom. The medical cot was empty now, the sheets stripped. He couldn't bear to look at it. Instead, his gaze was locked on the two figures, huddled under a survival blanket on the floor, next to the heating vent. He'd done it. Without thinking, driven by a reflex he thought had died with Lily, he had acted. He'd scooped both alien children out of the ice hollow, wrapping them in his heavy environment coat, and carried them back to the Whisper. The baby was frighteningly cold, her bioluminescence almost gone. The older one, who'd said her name was Sola in a whisper, hadn't stopped shivering. Now under the blanket's foil interior, Sola watched him with those wide, unblinking mercury eyes. The baby, whom Sola called Luma, was swaddled in thermal gel packs Kalen had warmed. He'd used his med scanner, set to non-Terran biology. The readings were chaotic, but clear on one point: Luma was hypothermic. Her energy signatures fading. Sola was exhausted, malnourished, but stable. "She is not connecting," Sola said, her translated voice a child's monotone overlaid with digital static. She stroked Luma's cheek. "The dream is too quiet here." "The dream?" Kalen asked, his voice rough. He warmed a nutrient broth, the kind he'd made for Lily. Sola's tendrils, a delicate cluster atop her head, twitched weakly. "The song. The warm song? Our people hear it. It holds us. This world, it is silent and cold. It sings only of ice and hunger. Kaylin handed her the broth. She sniffed it, then sipped, her eyes widening. A subtle pinkish flush bloomed under her moss-green skin. It is warm, she said, as if warmth was a forgotten myth. He worked in silence, his engineer's mind wrestling with the impossible. Alien children, buried in cryodite-rich ice, in a sarcophagus of organic tech. His initial scans of the site showed the structure was massive, descending deep into the planetary crust. It wasn't a ship. It was a tomb, or a bunker. Sola, he said gently, kneeling. Where are your parents? Her silver eyes fixed on a point beyond the wall, towards the dig site. They sleep, in the long quiet, to keep us safe until the song returned. A tear glowing with faint phosphorescence traced down her cheek. The song did not return. The cold found us first. A heavy dread settled in Kaylin's stomach. They weren't just lost. They were the last survivors of something. And he, a bankrupt widower mining a dead rock, was now responsible for them. He checked the external sensors. The weather was stabilizing for a brief window. His corporate overlords at Xenodyne Industries expected a weekly cryodite shipment in 18 hours. His quota was unmet. His daughter was dead. And he had 2 illegal, non-sanctioned alien life forms in his hab. The comms panel flickered. An automated priority alert scrolled across the screen. Xenodyne orbital scant anomaly. Detected in sector Gamma 7, your claim. Energy signature inconsistent with cryodite. Stand by for query. Kaylin's blood ran colder than the Riven 7 ice. They detected the opening of the chamber, the pulse of alien energy. He looked at Sola, who was now humming a soft, discordant little tune to her sister, and then at the silent, smiling picture of Alara. The corporation that owned his debt had just sensed a new asset on his claim. And they always collected. We have to move, Kaylin said, his voice tight with urgency. Sola looked up from Luma, her head tilting. Move? The small lighthouse is good. It is less cold. It's not safe here anymore. He was already in motion, pulling on his heavy suit over his thermal layer. He grabbed a portable field heater, all the nutrient packs, and the medical kit. The loud men in the sky. They saw where I found you. They will come. He didn't have a plan, only a direction, away. The Whisper had a crawler, a clanking, 6-wheeled buggy used for surface surveys. It had a sealed cabin and a weak heater. It would have to do. Wrapping Luma in layers of thermal foil and securing her to his chest with a harness, he felt a pang so sharp it stole his breath. He'd carried Lily like this when she was small and fighting fevers. Sola clung to his side, her small 3-fingered hand gripping a strap on his suit. Outside, the wind had died to a whisper. But the cold was absolute, a physical force that leached heat through his suit. The sky was a bruised purple, the red dwarf a smoldering ember on the horizon. He loaded the crawler, its engine coughing to life with a protest. He took one last look at the Whisper door, at the grave he hadn't finished, at the ghost of his old life. He drove towards the Terminator, the line of perpetual dusk that circled the planet. It offered some cover from orbital scans. As they bounced over the icy ridges, Sola pressed her face to the viewport. The song is different here, she murmured. Not warm, but not angry. It is lonely. Like you. Kaylin flinched. What do you mean, the song? What is it? She struggled for words, the translator fizzing. It is the underneath sound of everything. My people, we hear it strong. It tells us of growing things, of deep water, of others. Our homeworld sang a green and gold song. This place. She shivered. It is a scream that got tired. An empathic species. That's what she was describing. Connected to the bioelectrical or geomagnetic field of a planet. Riven 7's field must be inert, frozen. A silent tomb that was starving them. After 2 hours of driving, he found an outcropping of dark basaltic rock that offered a partial cave. He parked the crawler inside, its heater straining. He fed Sola, checked Luma, still fading, her glow dimmer, and tried to think. The comms in the crawler crackled. It was a wide-channel corporate band. Scan confirms anomalous biosignature in conjunction with unknown tech. Designate potential unregistered sapient or archaeotech. Dispatch reclamation team to Sector Gamma 7. Collector Reed. If you are receiving this, maintain position and assist. Your cooperation will be reflected in your debt reconciliation. The voice was smooth, impersonal. Collector Reed, that's all he was to them. A function. And now he was a function malfunctioning. They're coming, he said quietly. Sola understood. Her tendrils coiled tightly. The loud men will take us? To the cold place with no song? I won't let them, Kaylin said, the words coming out before he could stop them. He meant them. A fierce paternal protectiveness had ignited in his chest, a fire he thought had been extinguished. This wasn't about debt or survival anymore. It was about these 2 children. He needed answers. He powered up the crawler's weak sensor suite. aiming it back towards his claim, filtering for the specific energy signature he'd seen. The scan resolved into a deep subsurface map. The structure was vast, a sprawling, root-like network buried under 2 kilometers of ice, and at its heart, a powerful energy source pulsed in rhythm with Sola's description of the song. It was faint, but it was there. A heartbeat. "Sola," he asked, an idea forming, desperate and insane. "The long quiet your parents are in. Is it near the old song? The heart song of your bunker?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, they sleep around the heart to keep it safe. What if we could wake it up? Just a little. Enough to help Luma, enough to sing for her." Her mercury eyes brightened with a fragile hope. "The heart is strong, but the way is guarded by the silence." Before he could ask what the silence was, the crawler's proximity alarm blared. A shadow passed over the cave mouth. Not a cloud. A shape angular and grim descending on silent thrusters. A xenodyne skimmer. Matte black with the corporate sigil, a stylized X, encircling a globe on its hull. It settled on the ice outside. The side hatch opened. 2 figures in advanced armored environment suits stepped out. Pulse rifles held at the ready. Their helmet visors were opaque black. A third slimmer figure followed, unarmed, its suit adorned with sensor pods. A science officer. The lead soldier's amplified voice boomed into the cave. "Kalen Reed, exit the vehicle with your hands visible. You have something that belongs to Xenodyne." Kalen's mind raced. The crawler was armored, but not against pulse rifles. He had a mining laser cutter. Not a weapon. He looked at Sola, who was trembling, clutching Luma to her chest. He saw raw terror in her silver eyes. He made a decision. He opened the crawler's comm, broadcasting on the same channel. "I'm coming out alone. The specimens are fragile. Your weapons could damage them." A pause, then, "Acknowledged. Exit slowly." Kalen turned to Sola, his voice a hurried whisper. "Stay down. Do not make a sound, no matter what you hear." He placed the still form of Luma in her arms. "Keep her warm." He unsealed the cabin door and stepped out into the blinding white light of the skimmer's floods, his hands raised. The cold was a physical slap. The 2 armored figures fanned out, rifles trained on him. The science officer stepped forward, its visor clearing to reveal a sharp-featured woman with cool, analytical eyes. "Mr. Reed, I am Dr. Eris Thorne, Xenodyne Exobiology." Her voice was crisp over the suit comms. "You've made a significant discovery, and a significant error in not reporting it immediately." "They're children," Kalen said, his voice hard. "They're dying. This planet's environment is toxic to them. All the more reason to bring them into corporate custody," Thorne replied, not unkindly, but with the tone of someone stating an obvious fact. "We have the facilities to sustain them, to study them. Their technology could be worth more than all the cryodite on Ribbon 7. Your debt could be wiped clean, a bonus even. I'm not selling them." Thorne sighed. "You're not in a position to negotiate. Mr. Reed, the Commonwealth's Frontier Act is clear. Unregistered sapients and associated technology found on a corporate claimed world or property of the corporation, to be managed for the greater good. You are in violation of your contract. We could shoot you for theft and be within our rights." The lead soldier took a step closer, rifle raised. Kalen's heart hammered against his ribs. He was a miner, not a soldier. He had nothing. Then a sound. A soft, high-pitched hum emanating from the crawler. A faint, visible light, a soft gold, began to seep from the seams of the cabin door. Sola's voice, amplified not by a translator but by something else, something resonant and ancient, echoed in all their helmet speakers. It was a wordless song of pure, desperate fear and warning. The Xenodyne soldiers swung their rifles towards the crawler. "What is that?" "Contain it," Thorne barked. "No." Kalen moved, putting himself between the soldiers and the vehicle. In that moment of distraction, the ice moved. Not a quake. Something more deliberate. From a dozen points around the skimmer, the frozen surface erupted. Jagged spikes of ice, sharp as spears, shot upwards with terrifying speed. They weren't random. One impaled the lead soldier through his torso plate, the material cracking like an eggshell. He fell without a sound. The second soldier fired a wild pulse blast at the ground, shattering a spike. But another lance punched up through his leg, pinning him. He screamed, a sound cut short as his suit's integrity failed. Dr. Thorne stumbled back, her scientific curiosity replaced by primal terror. "What is this?" "Reed, what have you done?" Kalen stared, stunned. The ice spikes retracted as quickly as they had appeared, leaving grotesque sculptures of frozen blood and metal. The humming from the crawler grew stronger. The golden light pulsed. Sola emerged from the cabin. She was standing. But she wasn't just Sola. Her form was outlined in the same golden energy. Her mercury eyes were now solid, brilliant orbs of light. Her cranial tendrils floated as if underwater, each tip glowing. Luma, still in her arms, was also glowing, a weaker, synchronizing pulse. The silence guards the way, Sola's voice boomed, layered with 1,000 whispers. You are loud. You are sharp. You break the quiet. You are not welcome. This wasn't a child. This was an avatar. A weapon left behind by a dead civilization to protect its last seeds. Thorn scrambled for the skimmer. It's a planetary defense system. Biotech linked to the juveniles. Reed, you have to control it. Sola raised a hand. The ice at Thorn's feet surged, wrapping around her ankles like frozen shackles climbing. Thorn shrieked, clawing at her suit's release. Sola, stop! Kalen shouted, rushing towards her. He didn't care about Thorn, but this was Sola. This power would consume her. He saw it in the strain on her small face, in the way her glow flickered. He reached her, ignoring the radiating energy that made his skin prickle and his suit sensors scream warnings. He didn't grab her. He knelt in front of her, placing his hands gently on her shoulders, blocking her view of Thorn. Sola, look at me, just me. The glowing orbs that were her eyes focused on him. The humming wavered. You are Sola. You are the big sister. You hold Luma. You are brave and you are scared. This is not you. This is the fear of your people. Let it go, Mom, please. He saw a crack in the cosmic fury. A glimpse of the scared little girl who had asked him for help. A single glowing tear traced down her cheek. She wants to take us. To make us quiet forever. I won't let her, Kalen promised, his own eyes burning. But you can't do this. This power, it's hurting you. I can see it. The ice around Thorn's legs stopped climbing but held firm. The golden light from Sola dimmed, receding back into her skin. She sagged, the immense energy leaving her small body spent. Kalen caught her and Luma, holding them close. He turned to Thorn, who was panting in terror, trapped in ice up to her thighs. The system is linked to them, Kalen said, the truth dawning on him. To their emotional state. Fear, anger. It triggers the defense. Your archaeotech is a sentient bioweapon programmed to protect its children, and you just pointed guns at them. Thorn's face was pale. You can't leave me here. I'll freeze. Kalen looked at the dead soldiers, at the corporate skimmer, at the terrified scientist. He thought of the Xenodyne cruisers in orbit. They would send more, bigger. They would glass the site, from orbit to get what was inside. He had one chance, a terrible, dangerous chance. I'm not leaving you, he said to Thorn, his voice cold. You're coming with us. We're going back to the source, and you're going to help me wake up the heart. The journey back to the dig site was a silent, tense funeral procession. Kalen drove the crawler, Sola asleep in the passenger seat from exertion, Luma a dull ember in her arms. Dr. Eris Thorn sat in the back, her legs locked in hastily applied medical stabilizers from the skimmer's kit. Her wrists bound. The frozen bodies of her team were left behind, a problem for later. If there was a later. You're insane, Reed, Thorn said, her voice stripped of its professional veneer, raw with pain and fear. You're leading us into a dormant alien weapon system, controlled by a traumatized child, based on a fairy tale about a heart song. Do you have a better idea? Kalen didn't look back. They detected the energy spike when Sola activated the defenses. They'll send a full reclamation team, maybe an orbital strike. Our only hope is that whatever is down there has a way to hide or fight or something. Otherwise, we're all dead. You included. Xenodyne doesn't kill its employees without cause, she muttered, but it lacked conviction. We're not employees. We're assets. And right now we're faulty assets next to a priceless one. Sola stirred. The heart is sad, she whispered, her eyes still closed. It dreams of the green gold song. It is lonely like us. Kalen reached over, his large calloused hand covering her small cool one. We're going to see it. You'll introduce us. She opened her eyes. The mercury pools now just dull silver, exhausted. You are not like the loud men. Your song is quiet, but it has a strong shape. Like a wall. She looked at Thorn. Her song is sharp lines and broken circles. It hurts to hear. Thorn stared, a scientist's fascination briefly overcoming her fear. You can perceive neuroelectrical patterns? Empathic resonance on a quantifiable level? She says your song is ugly, Kalen translated bluntly. They reached the dig site. The hole Kalen had made was now a wide, dark maw, the edges smoothed and glazed as if by tremendous heat. The blue bioluminescence from within had intensified, casting an eerie aquatic glow on the surrounding ice. The crawler's sensors went wild. Gravity fluctuations, temporal distortions, concentrated bioenergy signatures that dwarfed anything in the database. They couldn't take the crawler down. Kalen suited up, carrying Luma against his chest again. Sola walked beside him, seemingly strengthened by the proximity to the structure. Thorn he forced to walk ahead, a living canary in a corporate coal mine. He'd given her a basic suit from the skimmer, It was ill-fitting and her mobility was limited, but it would keep her alive. They descended into the iris-like opening, following a smooth organic ramp that spiraled downward. The walls were not metal but a living, woody tissue that pulsed with the same soft blue light. Veins of gold and silver ran through it like circuitry. The air grew warmer, humid, and carried a scent like ozone and damp soil. "This is a biomechanical marvel," Thorn breathed, her bound hands trying to touch a wall. "The energy efficiency. It's using geothermal and biofusion. This is millennia beyond Commonwealth tech." "It's a tomb," Kalen said, looking at the walls. As they went deeper, the passages opened into large spherical chambers. In each, suspended in clear amber-like resin, were figures, soulless people, dozens of them, adults. Their features were serene, their bodies perfectly preserved, their moss-green skin faded. They slept the long quiet. Sola stopped before one chamber, placing her small hand on the resin. A man and a woman, their features bearing a resemblance to her own. "Mother, father," she whispered. The amber glowed faintly at her touch. They held the silence back so we could sleep in the small pocket. They gave their song to the heart, to keep it beating a little longer. The weight of it crushed Kalen. This wasn't just a bunker. It was a generational lifeboat that had failed. Parents sacrificing themselves into stasis to power a failing core, hoping a rescue that never came, leaving their children to wake alone. It mirrored his own loss with a symmetry that was heartbreaking. He thought of Alara, pushing Lily into his arms in the chaotic evacuation of Nova Kiev, staying behind to help others at the reactor. "Take her, go! I'll find you." She never did. He'd been a parent left alone, too. "I'm sorry, Sola," he said, his voice thick. "They loved you very much." She nodded, another glowing tear falling. "They loved the song. They wanted us to hear it again." They reached the heart. The central chamber was a vast cathedral-like space. In its center rose a colossal, tree-like structure of the same organic material, but its roots spread out and up through the walls, connecting to every sleeper, every chamber. At the base of the tree was a nexus of pulsing, crystalline filaments, the source of the golden light. The heart. But it was dim, flickering. Large sections were dark, crystalline facets dead and gray. The song Sola spoke of was a faint, discordant hum, a record player slowing to a stop, and around the heart standing sentinel were other forms, not in resin. These were made of the same material as the walls, but shaped into tall, slender armored statues. 10 of them arranged in a circle. They were featureless, smooth, and utterly still. "The silence," Sola said, fear returning to her voice. As they stepped into the chamber, the nearest statue moved. Its head rotated smoothly, silently towards them. A seam opened in its chest, revealing a hollow, dark cavity. A low subsonic vibration filled the air, making Kalen's teeth ache. "It senses threat," Thorn said, freezing. "It's assessing." "We are not a threat," Kalen called out, holding Luma closer, putting a hand on Sola's head. "We are here for the children. We need the heart." The statue took one step forward, then another, its arm raised, the hand reshaping into a blade of crystalline energy. Sola stepped in front of Kalen. She closed her eyes and began to hum. Not the powerful, defensive song from before, but the soft, discordant lullaby she'd sung to Luma. A child's song. A song of memory, not of power. She poured her loneliness, her fear for her sister, her fragile hope into the hum, and she directed it not at the sentinel, but at the flickering heart. The golden light in the nexus pulsed in time with her song. A weak sympathetic resonance. The sentinel stopped. Its head tilted. The energy blade retracted. It stood still once more, a guardian recognizing a lost note of the old song. Thorn exhaled a shuddering breath. Incredible. The defense protocol is bypassed by authentic emotional resonance from a descendant. It's a lock keyed to DNA and psychic imprint. Kalen approached the heart. Up close, he could see the damage. It wasn't just dormant. It was dying. The energy flow was arrhythmic. "Sola, can you talk to it? Ask it to help Luma." Sola placed both hands on a cool living root at the base. She closed her eyes. The translation computer in Kalen's suit couldn't interpret the flow of data, but he heard her thoughts as whispered fragments in his mind, a side effect of the empathic field. "So cold. The little light is going out. She's my other half song. Please. You are the last memory of home. Warm her." The heart pulsed. A single strong golden wave of light traveled up the root, through Sola and into Luma. The baby skin, which had been a dull gray, flushed with a vibrant moss-green hue, her own tiny tendrils uncurled, glowing with a soft internal light. She let out a small mewling cry, the first sound Kalen had heard from her. Sola gasped, a sob of pure joy. She hears it. She hears the song. But the effort was too much. The heart flared brightly for a second, then dimmed further than before. Several more crystal facets went dark. The chamber lights faded. The sentinels around the room seemed to slump, their silent vigil nearing its end. It used the last of its stable energy, Thorne said, her voice grim. It's in terminal cascade failure. When it goes, this entire structure loses integrity. The ice above us, hundreds of millions of tons, will collapse. An alarm shrieked in Kalen's helmet. Not from the heart, from the surface, warning multiple orbital re-entry. Signatures detected, Xenodyne Reclamation Fleet. Class for vessels on approach vector. Estimated arrival 10 minutes. They were out of time. The cavalry had arrived, and they were coming to seize a dying treasure and bury all witnesses. Kalen looked at the dying heart, at the sleeping souls in the walls, at Sola holding her now glowing sister, and at the terrified corporate scientist. He had no ship, no weapons, no hope. Then his eyes fell on the sentinels, and he had the most reckless, terrible idea of his life. Thorne, Kalen barked, unsealing his helmet. The air was still breathable, thick with the scent of ozone and decay. You're an exobiologist. Can you interface with this? Talk to the heart systems? She stared at him as if he'd grown a second head. Interface? With a psychic alien tree? My equipment reads basic energy signatures, not song. You heard Sola. It's not magic. It's a technology based on empathic resonance. A language. You said yourself it's a lock keyed to psychic imprint. We need to change the lock, or open a new door. He pointed at the sentinels. They're not just guards. They're part of the system, connectors. What if we could redirect the remaining energy? Not to heal Luma, but to wake up them? Sola looked up, understanding dawning with horror. Wake the silence? But they are for guarding. For wending threats. The biggest threat is coming from the sky, Sola. We can't hide. We can't run. We either surrender you and Luma to Xenodyne, or we fight with the only weapons we have. He knelt before her. I need you to ask the heart, not to sing a lullaby, to sing a war song. One last time for you, for Luma, for your parents. Tears streamed down Sola's face, glowing in the dim chamber. It will die. The heart will break. I know, Kalen said, his own vision blurring. And I am so sorry to ask this of you. But sometimes, protecting something means making a terrible choice. He thought of Alara staying behind. He finally understood her choice completely. Sola looked at Luma, who was now cooing softly, her tiny hand gripping Sola's finger. She looked at the amber tomb holding her parents. She nodded, a movement filled with a sorrow far beyond her years. She placed her hands back on the root, and Kalen placed his over hers. Thorne, driven by a mix of scientific awe and survival instinct, hobbled over and placed her bound hands on top of his, a human chain connecting to a dying alien god. Tell it, Kalen whispered. Show it what's coming. Show it the loud men in the sky. Show it what they will do, and ask it for a shield. Or a sword. Sola closed her eyes. This time the psychic feedback was overwhelming. Kalen's mind flooded with images. The green-gold world, vibrant, singing with life. Then, the dark shapes blotting out the stars. Not Xenodyne. Sleeker, crueler. A different enemy. A war fought with silence and sound. The decision, the great sleep, the sacrifice. The long quiet. The hope fading over centuries, millennia into the cold. And now new loud men. Coming for the last seeds. The heart received the images. The last functional crystals blazed with a furious, desperate light. It understood. History was repeating. It would not let its children be taken again. A deep, resonant chord echoed through the chamber. A sound felt in the bones more than heard. The 10 sentinels straightened in unison. Light, not gold, but a fierce electric blue ignited within their chest cavities. Their featureless faces remained blank, but their purpose was clear. The central heart tree shuddered. With a sound like a mountain cracking, a section of its structure reconfigured. Crystalline panels shifted, aiming upwards, through the layers of rock and ice towards the surface. It's not powering the sentinels directly, Thorne yelled over the rising hum. It's converting its remaining bioplasma into a directed energy weapon. A single massive burst. It's aiming at the fleet. What about the collapse? Kalen shouted back. The energy discharge will vaporize the structure from the inside out. We have to get out, now! But there was no time. The alarm in his helmet was a constant scream. Fleet in low-orbit deployment skimmers detached, weapons charging. The heart's light gathered into a searing, blinding point at the tip of the upward-facing array. The sentinels began to move. Not towards Kalen's group, but forming a protective circle around them in the base of the heart. It's going to fire through the roof. Kalen grabbed Sola and Luma, pulling Thorne down behind the bulk of a thick root. Cover your eyes. The world turned white and silent. A column of pure, concentrated energy, visible as a twisting helix of blue and gold, erupted from the heart. It passed through the organic ceiling as if it were mist. through 2 kilometers of solid ice, and into the purple sky of Riven 7. On the surface, the Xenodyne reclamation fleet, 3 sleek, dagger-like frigates and a dozen deployment skimmers, hovered over the dig site. Their commander saw only a minor energy anomaly below. The beam struck the lead frigate amidships. There was no explosion in the vacuum. The ship's shields flared and died in a nanosecond. The beam punched through the hull, through the reactor, and out the other side, continuing into space. The frigate came apart in a silent, graceful bloom of vaporized metal and expanding gas. The beam swept sideways, a scythe of light. It clipped a second frigate, shearing off its engine array. The ship spun out of control, crashing into the ice miles away in a secondary, thunderous explosion that shook the planet's surface. The third frigate and the skimmers scattered, evading the main beam. But the attack was over as suddenly as it began. Deep below in the chamber, the light died. The heart was dark. Every crystal facet was gray and dead. The soft blue luminescence in the walls guttered out. The only light came from the cracks in the ceiling, where the beam had torn through, letting in faint, dusty streams of external light and a cascade of fine ice crystals. The great tree-like structure began to crumble, turning to brittle, blackened ash. The amber resin holding the sleepers clouded, then cracked. The silent, peaceful forms within began to dissolve, returning to the ecosystem of their ship one final time. The sentinels, their blue light extinguished, froze in their protective poses. Then one by one they cracked and fell apart. Ancient duty finally complete. The deep hum was gone. The song had ended. The only sound was the groan of stressed rock and ice, and the distant thunder of collapsing tunnels. They were buried alive in a tomb they had just activated. Dust and fine ice filled the air. Kalen coughed, shielding Sola and Luma with his body. The main chamber was holding, but for how long? Thorne stared at the devastation, her face a mask of soot and awe. It took out 2 frigates, with a single shot. The technology, the power, it's gone, Kalen said hoarsely, looking at the pile of ash that was the heart. All of it. Sola was crying quietly, holding a now sleeping Luma. She had felt the heart's final moments, not pain, but a fierce, determined release, like a parent throwing their last strength to push a child out of danger. It sang its last for us, she whispered. Kalen pulled them close. It did. Just like your parents. He looked around. They were trapped. The way they came was likely buried. The hole above was 2 kilometers straight up. Then a new sound. Not of collapse. A rhythmic mechanical thrum. And a light, the clean, white beam of a high-powered spotlight stabbed down through the hole in the ceiling, illuminating the dusty chamber. A craft descended. Not Xenodyne. It was older, bulkier, a civilian model orbital shuttle, its hull scarred and patched. It bore a symbol, a stylized hand cradling a star, the emblem of the Independent Salvagers Guild. The shuttle settled awkwardly on the uneven floor. A ramp extended and a figure in a battered, non-corporate environment suit stepped out, a heavy rivet gun held like a rifle. The visor cleared, revealing a woman with a fierce grin and cybernetic optics glinting over one eye. Well now, a gruff, weathered voice came over Kalen's suit comm. That was one hell of a fireworks show. Picked up the energy spike from 3 sectors over, saw Xenodyne getting its fancy nose bloodied, thought there might be something worth salvaging. Her optics scanned the chamber, the ash, the 2 alien children in Kalen's arms. Looks like I'm a little late for the main event, but not for the aftermath. Kalen stood, placing himself between the salvager and the children. They're not for sale. The salvager chuckled, lowering her rivet gun. Relax, Miner. I'm not Xenodyne. Name's Rourke. I trade in information and odd jobs. And right now I'm looking at the 3 most wanted beings in this sector. You just declared war on the biggest corp in the Orion Arm. She nodded at Sola and Luma. And these 2, they're the key to a tech that can one-shot frigates. Every pirate, warlord, and black labs in the fringe will be hunting you. What do you want? Kalen asked, his arm tightening around Sola. A share, Rourke said simply. You need a ride off this ice cube and a way to disappear. I have a ship with a gremlin, fast, quiet, and very, very off-grid. I can get you to a place Xenodyne will never find you. A little colony on a backwater world. They mind their own business. And in return? In return, you let me record everything. The kids, their abilities, what happened here. Not to sell to corpse, but as a insurance policy. A story to tell at the right time to the right people. The story of the last song of Riven 7. Her cybernetic eye word. Focusing on Sola. And maybe, someday if they're willing, a little help finding other songs. I've seen structures like this in my travels. Dormant, silent. Maybe not all hearts are dead. Kalen looked down at Sola. She looked up at him, then at Luma, then at the kind, sad face of Alara in his mind's eye. He saw a future not of running, but of searching. of protecting a new family, of healing an old silent wound in the galaxy. He nodded to Rourke. Get us out of here. As they boarded the battered shuttle, lifting off through the column of light, Kalen looked down one last time. The ancient bunker, the tomb of a civilization, was crumbling into the ice, a secret returning to the deep freeze. In his arms, Luma cooed, a tiny warm weight against his chest. Sola leaned against him, her hand in his, watching their past vanish below. Rourke piloted the shuttle up through the atmosphere, past the debris field of the Xenodyne frigates, and into the star-dusted black. On the scanner, a dozen new corporate signatures were already warping into the system, drawn by the battle. But the gremlin was already gone, a ghost slipping into the chaotic streams of unregistered, faster than light travel, headed for the dark, quiet places between the stars. Kalen Reed was no longer a miner. He was a keeper of a song, a father of two, and the man who had, for a brief, shining moment, given a dying heart a reason to beat one last furious time. As the stars streaked into lines of light, Sola hummed her little discordant lullaby, and somewhere in the deep, silent dark of the galaxy, another slumbering heart, buried under the sands of a forgotten desert world, flickered with a single, almost imperceptible pulse of gold. What other lost songs are sleeping in the dark? The story of Kalen, Sola, and Luma continues in our next series, The Starless Choir. Subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss it. And tell us in the comments, would you have made the same choice Kalen did?